Executive Director.
That's right. Incoming.
Yeah, incoming.
Welcome to Life Esteem, a program committed to delivering information to you and your community.
Hello and welcome to Life Esteem. I almost said self-esteem. Life Esteem. We're always so glad to have you as a viewer to this program. And today is no exception because we have with us the new incoming Executive Director of Bethesda Mission. One of the anchor organizations in our community is George Chochos. And George brings a wealth of knowledge and information. We're so glad that he's here. George, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, indeed, man. I got a chance to meet George at a men's breakfast that we have for Christian men, and he was just fantastic. So, George, welcome. And you are coming to Harrisburg from where?
I'm coming from Alexandria, Virginia, better known as the DMV.
All right, the DMV. And Pat is from that area. She's born and raised in D.C.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and you have quite a task on your hand, man. But based on your presentation to us at the, you're up for this. You're up for this this task.
Oh, by God's grace.
By God's grace, absolutely.
With Christ's strength.
Yeah, and you come to it from a position of really knowing what men go through, right?
Sure.
And especially the men that you're serving and everything. Tell us a bit about yourself and the background.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Albany, New York.
All right.
Unfortunately, in the height of the crack era, and so that doesn't excuse anything, but it sure does explain a lot of things. I was actually adopted by a Greek family. It was a closed adoption.
Okay.
So I didn't know my ethnic background. When later on, some friends would say, George, you kind of look culturally ambiguous. And so back then, growing up in the Greek Orthodox Church, it was Greek before it was Orthodox, and so I felt like a raisin in a bowl of milk. And somewhere around 8 years old or 7 or 8, my parents told me I was adopted, and imagine with the imagination of a young child, and without having any information to go on, you start putting things in your mind about why didn't your parents want you? You start coming up with stories. You tell yourself and tell others, and all of a sudden I started seeing, now when I reflect on it and doing some work with therapy with a pastor, realized that I started to see the world through the lens of difference. Reality started to shift.
Yeah.
My parents are my parents, but they're not my parents. I'm Greek, but I'm not Greek. My brother's my brother, but he's not my brother.
Yeah.
He was adopted as well. His name was Nick, and he was about 5.5 years older than me. And so, but he had some serious mental health struggles. Yeah. And so later on in life, he started using heavier drugs, and that kind of put a strain on the family. And many times, people may be good people, but my parents just weren't good together. And I think my brother and I used that to our detriment, and exploited that to our detriment. And so at around 16 years old, me and my father had a conversation. Sometimes parents say things in a way that maybe the child interprets it in a way that the parent didn't mean it. And because he's not here to say what he meant, it didn't go the way I thought it should go, and I psychologically checked out from my family. And from then started drinking, and eventually got kicked out of high school, had to go to the school. I don't like the phrase at-risk youth. I like youth with potential. And so I went to the school for youth with potential. And I should have never graduated. That's a whole other story. But eventually I tried to go to college, and I wasn't doing good in life. Started making some really poor decisions. I met my current wife at 19 years old. Then we had a child at 20. I was arrested for the first time, handcuffs on me at 17, a felony at 18, an 8-month bid at 20, and my son was born 3 months into that. And I decided to try to go to SUNY Delhi, and emphasis on the high, unfortunately, and continue to make poor decisions. And by then, my parents were really struggling, and so was my brother. He was in and out of mental institutions for a number of years. He was actually the really smart one in the family. I was told that he got one question wrong on the SATs because he didn't answer the question because he thought it was too stupid. But anyway, so he was just a really smart guy. He was working with computers way before anybody else was. And so at 21, unfortunately, he decided that he couldn't take life anymore, and he took his own life. And I found him in the backyard of our home. And by then, you know, at 19, I moved to the South Bronx, and I saw things there that I should have never seen. Ended up homeless, having to live in an abandoned heroin shooting gallery.
Wow.
And decided that, well, you know, like the prodigal son, I'm like, man, listen, I'm going to go home. Decided to go home, but still making poor decisions. And at 21, my brother, he was 27, he took his life. I found him in the backyard of our home. And some quote-unquote friends came around with what became, unfortunately, my best friend for the next 3 years, cocaine.
Oh, boy.
Powdered cocaine.
Yeah.
And I probably would have tried anything to come out of this state that we were in. You know, it felt like there was a black cloud over everything, and just, and God has given me somewhat of a photographic memory, so I have that picture in my head, and it's impossible to get out. But hopefully now I've learned different ways to deal with it in healthier ways, right? It doesn't go away, but you learn to deal with things in healthier ways. And so eventually I was in and out of jail from 21 to 26 to where I decided, well, my father died 2 years after my brother. My brother died in 1995. My father died 1997. I had 10 days left on a 100-day sentence in New Jersey. I was in and out of jail between New York and New Jersey for drug felonies. And eventually it came to a head where I used enough of the substance to where I went into what is called a cocaine psychosis.
Wow.
If you ingest enough of the substance, you can actually alter, I was told you could alter your brain chemistry to where it mimics that of a paranoid schizophrenic.
Okay.
And I had stayed in that state for 9 months. And so this was 1999. And eventually, and it's not like I was looking for God or looking for Jesus, I was in jail again, and they have what is called like a fishbowl or an observation cell where they have a big plexiglass window. They want to see how you're going to respond to being in jail. And somebody left a daily word in there.
Okay.
And you had to go to your cell you had to be in your cell for 72 hours because they wanted to make sure you don't have TB. To make sure to give you a TB test. And so I don't know what I said. I don't know if I cried out to Jesus, if I called out the name of the Lord. All I knew was that I had been in that cocaine psychosis for 9 months, and it scared me so much I actually stopped using on the street. And so this was 9 months later, and I didn't come out of this to psychosis, and all of a sudden, after reading about Jesus, my mind cleared up like that, and all of a sudden I had, you know, the Bible says that, the Word says that God gives us the desires of our heart.
Amen.
And so God gave me these two desires. Number one, to know who this God and Jesus was that had just radically transformed my life. And number two, to acquire an education. And so eventually I did go to prison for 14 years, and I found myself in the infamous Sing Sing prison.
Wow.
It has one of the most picturesque views of the Hudson River, so much so that the president-elect, before he was who he was, or who he is, he actually wanted to buy the land and put multi-million-dollar condos. That's how beautiful the view is. But imagine experiencing that through metal bars. And so experiencing the beauty of the Hudson through metal bars made me critically reflect on my life. I thought, is this all I have to show for my life? Is this that my best thinking, my best shot at life forced my community to lock me in a cage like an animal? And what we know now, what I didn't know then was there used to be college and prison programs in just about every prison in America before 1994 with the infamous crime bill that Bill Clinton signed into law. One of the provisions in that bill was to restrict people in prison from having access to federal Pell Grants. Well, federal Pell Grants and state aid were the two main funders for college and prison programs. Imagine there's hundreds of college and prison programs. I believe New York, every single prison had a program, and then in 3 years, from 1994 to 1997, it went down to 8. Wow. 0 undergraduate programs I could take advantage of. And God sent me to Sing Sing. And I walked into the wrong section of the chapel building. I know when I say by accident, people will correct me like, no, that was divine intervention. That was a divine appointment. I walked into the wrong section of the chapel building looking for what was called transitional services, and end up in the only program left in the state. It was a master's program offered by New York Theological Seminary, a Master of Professional Studies in Urban Ministry that was training the men in prison to become urban ministers. So they're teaching New Testament, systematic theology, pastoral care and counseling, I mean, you name it. And so at first I was like, wow, God, it's a master's degree. Then I was like, man, it's a master's degree. I was smart enough to know that you need a bachelor's degree in order to get a master's degree. And so eventually, God touched someone's heart. And they sent me around the system. I ended up in Clinton Correctional Facility, which is up by Canada. If you spit too far from the yard, you can hit Canada probably. And somebody sent me, and God touched somebody's heart to send me to Eastern Correctional Facility.
Okay.
And Bard College, which today is around a $60,000 a year school, started offering college courses. They didn't know if they were going to have a degree early on because you had to, or at least a bachelor's, because you had to do an 80-plus page senior research project, and we didn't have the resources to be able to do that at the time. But eventually the program grew, and 4 years into my sentence, they took 15 students, and I was one of those 15. Every chaplain took a liking to me. And 10 years almost to the day, I was back in that master's classroom with an associate's degree, 2 bachelor's degrees. God miraculously erased the tens of thousands of dollars that I owed from restitution. And I had met a pastor who preached every 5th Friday, 8 years into my sentence, at a sister rescue mission to the one where I'm now executive director, the Capital City Rescue Mission in Albany, New York. And so he asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, well, you know, I've heard about this Capital City Rescue Mission. Maybe I'll go there. And so fast forward, I'm in the 2nd semester of the master's program. This would have been 2011. I just got 6 months off my sentence, so I was on my way home. And our professor used a textbook co-authored by 2 Yale University Divinity School graduates, and they happened to be doing a book tour, to be doing a book tour down the street from Sing Sing. Our professor, because they were in the same denomination, invited them in. One was from outside of Boston, the other one outside of Chicago. And I'm sure I said it somewhat sarcastically, because I just know me. I said, what's the possibility of somebody like me going to a place like Yale when I get out of here? Well, they knew something that I didn't. Yale Divinity School had never accepted somebody with a felony record. And so when I got out in 2011, I actually worked with the same DA's office that sentenced me on youth program development. And by then I'd had 2 children, and I hadn't even seen my own children, but here I was working in mentoring programs, mentoring other people who were in prison's children. And so out of the relationship that I created between a Christian organization and the DA's office, they gave us money to go see Dr. Ben Carson when he used to give his Think Big speech at Johns Hopkins Children's Medical Center. And so somebody showed me how to use a smartphone. It should have been a dumb phone for me. Because if you imagine, I went in March 2011. I came out September 2011, or actually March 2000 to September 2011. And so I missed all the technology. I missed Google. I never used the internet before. I mean, if you think of all the technological advances that had happened, and when I got out, and I kind of say this when I go back in or mentor people who are coming home from prison, that the physical transition from prison to society can take just a moment, but the psychological transition can take a lifetime. And so the world, kind of Karl Barth talks about the scriptures as this strange new world. So here I was in this world that was strangely familiar but eerily different. It was strangely familiar, but eerily different. And so somehow I would go into a Starbucks. I went to order a coffee, and I hear people talking about venti this and mocha that. I said, can I just have a coffee, please? And so I actually would go in to a different Starbucks almost every day and order a coffee until it felt normal. And then somebody showed me how to use Google, and one of the co-authors that came to visit my class in prison, I found his phone number at his church office. And so I left a message, didn't think anything of it. 9 months later, we had taken the kids to go see Dr. Ben Carson, and so I was down in Baltimore, down by the Maryland Science Museum, because we had just taken the kids there. My phone goes off, and it's Reverend Martin Copenhaver, who's one of the co-authors. He says, George, what do you think about Yale? I said, well, now that you mention it, I'm thinking about it a lot. And so it's interesting. I got out September 23rd, 2011. I started working at the Bethesda Mission in September 23rd of 2024. I went to Yale September 27th. 2012, and my week ended at Bethesda Mission on the 27th of September. And so as soon as I got there, people tried to, I think, manage my expectations, because they probably also knew what I didn't know, that they didn't accept anybody with a felony record. And so around the same time, the Yale Black Seminarians started what is now a new tradition called the all-school read. If I'm taking too long, just let me know.
No, I'm listening. I want you to tell the story.
They started something that today is called the all-school read. And so the very first all-school read was in the fall semester of 2012, and some students got together. They chose a book, and then they went to the dean, and they said, all right, dean, you got to get the school to buy the book for every student. And then the dean gets the author to come and give a lecture at the end of the semester. The very first book when my application showed up was Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration, the Age of Colorblindness. And so I felt like God stopped the whole Divinity School to address prison and criminal justice reform, and here comes my application. What I didn't know was Martin Copenhaver, the gentleman I met in prison, was on the Dean's Advisory Council. I heard him say Advisory Council. I didn't hear Dean's Advisory Council. And I guess he wrote a letter on my behalf, and they called me the next day. And Dean Hopi Randall said, George Chochos? I said, yes. I said, we think you're brilliant. You've been accepted to Yale Divinity School. I threw my phone. And so I guess I should back up and say that when I got out, my first job was actually because I had been a chaplain's aide for 8 years. And the gentleman that I met who preached every fifth Friday, I got out the week before the fifth Friday. He let me preach in his stead. And the chaplain at the rescue mission was retiring. And so they hired me after they heard me preach to be the chaplain. And that was my first job out of prison for 10 hours a week for $10 an hour. And I loved that job. And I felt God was using me to help people who were in like a perpetual state of hopelessness, to move them from hopelessness to hopefulness. And so a year and a half out, I got into Yale Divinity School as the first formerly incarcerated person to do so. Ended up getting 2 graduate degrees from Yale, even one of the class preaching awards when I got my Master of Divinity degree. Then I went to work for the Bridgeport Rescue Mission, which is another sister mission in Connecticut, and where I helped design their supportive housing program that's still around to this day. Then I moved to Georgetown University to work for a first of its kind, this program Pivot. It was a collaboration between Georgetown's McDonough School of Business, the Prisons and Justice Initiative, and the DC Department of Employment Services, where they offered a certificate in business fundamentals and entrepreneurship to formerly incarcerated DC residents. And then remember how I mentioned that Pell Grants were taken out? Well, there had been, by then, a 20-something year campaign to restore them. And so I was going to Capitol Hill and sharing this jail to Yale story. And I guess I must have done a good job, because the people I went with went and told the Vera Institute of Justice, who was then looking for somebody to be the federal policy lead on Capitol Hill. And here I am with very limited lobbying experience. And they hired me, and 7 months after that, through, I believe, a bunch of prayer and a lot of hard work from a number of organizations, including Prison Fellowship and others, College Community Fellowship, the Drug Policy Alliance and others, we were able, with a divided Congress, to get, Bobby Scott did a really good job working with Lamar Alexander at the time, and they restored federal Pell Grants for every single person in and out of prison who has a felony record. It also reduced the FAFSA form from 108 questions to 38, and it forgave HBCUs of $1 billion.
Fantastic.
That's amazing.
I wanted you to tell that story because I heard George again. We were at the prayer breakfast, and all of us, after your presentation, we've been talking about it. You know, we was just like, man. And that's the thing I want the community to hear, because we think that oftentimes, you know, there's no hope. You know, people coming from the kind of background that you just outlined, oh, there's no hope in that. But there is. You know, and I mentioned so many people, even from Harrisburg here. I'm thinking of Dr. Jonathan Zaki Queen, who at one point said to me, he said, man, I ruled 18th and Market Street. You know, sold drugs, fought, did all that kind of stuff. The judge looked at me one time and said, you are now a career criminal, and he goes to prison for 10 years, you know, having been in and out, in and out, in and out. But he just received his doctorate just this year, I think from Princeton University. And he took the long route, bachelor's, master's, doctorate, you know what I mean? Just like you did. So, brother, I just thank you for sharing that, because I just want to give other people out there hope to know that it can be done. And all the stuff about giving up, don't do it. Don't do it, right? Amen. So you're now working with men and women at Bethesda Mission, who you know, right? So tell us about that job and what you hope to accomplish, you know, there at Bethesda Mission.
Sure. So Bethesda Mission, I mean, Bethesda in Hebrew means house of mercy, and it really is a house of mercy where men, women, and children are coming for services. And we have a men's shelter, also a women's shelter where we have women and women with children, but also a community center where we want to give back to the community and work with children and families. So hopefully they don't have to come to us for other services later on. And the one thing that I've noticed, I mean, I just started September 23rd, is that there is just a deep respect for the mission of the community, but also the people that are working there are just so committed. Everybody seems to be on board with the North Star, which is through tangible expressions of the love of Christ, reaching one woman, one man, one child at a time.
Amen.
And helping them move, like I say, from hopelessness to hopefulness. And what I hope to do is to continue a tradition. Scott Dunwoody, who's the outgoing executive director, did a great job of navigating through the mission, through the pandemic, through millions of dollars of renovation projects. As you know, we have a new women's shelter now. They actually knocked down the old building, and now there's a beautiful new building there.
It is.
And where's that located?
That's on the corner, I think, of 20th and Foster.
Okay, all right.
And Forrester, yeah, that's what it is. I'm still learning all these
Yeah,
areas. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful place where, you know, women who may have been hurt or coming out of abusive situations can find a peaceful place to reflect on their lives and to begin to work on issues and start to heal again. And also for our men. And sometimes I walk around when I make sure like nobody's around that works there, and I go to the men. I'm like, hey, are we treating you right? And then, you know, my pastor used to tell me, George, you all right? And he could tell in my face. He had discernment. He was like, would you tell me if you weren't? And so I say, would you tell me if we weren't? And they all say yes. And everybody is just so thankful for the mission and the way that I think the staff cares for them and wants to see what's the best for them. Yeah. And so it's a beautiful ministry, and I want to continue. It's been around for 110 years, and I'm hoping it's going to continue way past my tenure. But, you know, I'd also like to bring, I think, what I brought from my last position was starting to bring education to the mission. For example, I had some conversations recently with a university, and we may make the mission a satellite campus, so that could be professional development, also pathways into employment as well, and also maybe getting back into supportive housing, the same way we did at the Capital City Rescue Mission. So what I want to see is, you know, Jesus calls us into an abundant life. And I don't want the mission to be a place where it's like a bracket of your life where it's just, all right, I'm going to work on myself, but then I'm in the same position. I still need a job. I still need housing. I still need health care. I want to have people, when they first come, that they know that there's a pathway to housing, there's a pathway to employment, there's a pathway to education, and use the mission as a way to get back into society in a way where you've addressed some of your issues, but also have a future with hope.
Amen.
How long, I'll talk about the men's shelter first. How long can they stay there? Is there a time frame, or?
I think it's somewhere around a year. But we have people that stay longer. I'm going to be looking to, you know, at the Capital City Rescue Mission, we had something called a volunteer extension dorm. So we're getting ready to do some renovations at the men's shelter, and we may be putting in a volunteer extension dorm. So there may be people that may not have the next thing set up yet, but want to stay at the mission for a little bit longer. They would give us, say, 3 to 4 hours of service a day, and they can stay much longer.
Now at the women's shelter, you said children can come there too?
It's women and children, yes.
Women and children, okay.
Yes.
All right. And how long can the women stay at the shelter?
Usually, we have short-term programs for people that just need, that aren't really dealing with addiction issues, but mainly like our in-between housing. Or actually, we're seeing a lot of boomers come to the women's mission as well. People that, you know, their Social Security check isn't going as far. You know, there's more month than money. And so they find themselves in a place where they need a little help. And so, but then we have our longer-term programs, which are 12 months to 16 to a year and a half.
All right. Okay.
Fantastic, yeah.
And what accommodation, or how many can you accommodate at the women's shelter?
51 women.
51.
And I think we can have up to 18 children, I believe.
18. And what about the men's shelter?
100.
100.
Yeah.
Okay.
We used to have more, but we started to realize that it was becoming more of a shelter than a recovery program, and so we want to make sure that we're able not just to have it be a place where people can rest, but also where they can recover as well.
Yeah, it's very important,
Definitely.
And so, you know, I mentioned at the top that, you know, Bethesda Mission is like an anchor organization here.
Yes, sir.
You know, a much needed one. And one of the things we found out recently is that, well, say recently, but some of the surrounding counties, you know, they don't have the Bethesda Mission. So a lot of people are migrating, coming into Dauphin County to, you know, take advantage of and everything. You know, is that problematic, or is that something that because it seems like you're overwhelmed at times in terms of the need.
Rescue missions typically around the country, and there's hundreds of them. You know, people come from all over the place. We had someone from Alabama. Many times rescue missions say Albany is their hometown, and, you know, they say people, places, and things. So they may need to get out of that area for a reason, so they may get sent to us or to another rescue mission.
Gotcha.
And so sometimes you'll have people that are coming from other missions, or they just hear about our programs and they want to take part of them, and so they come from around the country.
Yeah, it's really an issue. I remember when President Barack Obama was in office, Cornel West, who was just recently here, by the way,
Yes.
and also Tavis Smiley, they were kind of criticized because they were really trying to put a spotlight on homelessness and the effects behind that. Because a lot of people found themselves being homeless who never thought they would be. They lost jobs and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what's your thought about that? I mean, are we doing enough? Even in this local area, is there more? I know there's more that can be done. But what are the needs that the general public probably doesn't understand about missions like that, and why some men and women choose to stay on the street as opposed to come to the missions?
Sure. I think number one is that we're seeing an increasing number of people experiencing mental health crises, and sometimes that may keep you out of a mission. Not every mission takes people with mental health issues. We do, or that are taking mental health medications. Right. And so sometimes if something is beyond our level of care, it's more of our responsibility to find a partner organization that can help them, because you don't want to have somebody that's beyond your level of care, because then you're really harming them, not really helping them. And so what I'm seeing, what I've been taught by my mentors is collaboration and partnerships. That this Bethesda mission is not, it can't do everything. It's not going to solve every problem. But in partnership and collaboration, and that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm now in the phase of my transition, of the transition period of me to executive director, is now meeting with community partners like Downtown Daily Bread and others, or Safe Haven, the Safe Haven facility and others, and seeing how we can partner together to where your expertise may be mental health, and now I can partner with you where you can help address some of the mental health issues, but we also have a medical and dental clinic, and we may be able to help others in those areas as well. And so I think in this season that God is calling us to deeper levels of collaboration, and also, as I think, making sure that programs aren't just brackets for people's lives, but are a pathway into a successful life, back into the community.
I don't mind saying that Life Esteem, we have a number of services that we offer, thanks to this lady here, and especially family services. We have a van, that can take up to 15 minutes. And so we'd be more than happy to sit down and talk with you about how we can partner with your men to do more of the kind of work that's needed. And women, that's right, to do more of the kind of work. So welcome aboard, man. I'm so glad that you're here. and also love your backstory, but also I love your passion and your knowledge base. And Harrisburg has been blessed to have great leadership in this area, in this regard. As you said, Bethesda Mission has done great stuff in expanding. Even the youth, we didn't even talk about the youth facility, but you have a wonderful youth facility. I know we're going to run out of time, but that's located up on, Hurst Street, right?
It's on Hurst Street, yeah. Andre Cooper is our director. He's just passionate about it. He loves the work that they do. They're really doing everything they can to reach these kids and then to build up leadership, next generation leaderships, and throughout their lifetime.
All right. Well, listen, by the way, how can people reach the Bethesda Mission and get in touch with you if they have questions or they just want to help out?
Sure. So you can reach me at Chochos, that's GCHOCHOS at BethesdaMission.org.
Fantastic. Listen, help out any way that you can. Reach out, be a part of the community. Bethesda Mission is part of us and we're part of them. God bless you. Have yourself a wonderful day and keep on doing what you do. And we'll see you next time here on Life Esteem.